Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every connection, whether it's romantic, personal, or professional, when words start to lose their meaning, when explanations feel empty, when actions shift without warning, and you're left trying to make sense of silence that wasn't there before. And in that moment, your instinct may be to speak louder, to do more, to try and pull someone back with effort and emotion. But what if the most powerful thing you could do was nothing? What if the silence you fear is actually the space where truth reveals itself? What if instead of filling the gap, you let the silence speak? Tonight, we're not just talking about communication. We're talking about presence, self-respect, and the strength it takes to say nothing when every part of you wants to say everything. Let's begin. When someone you care about starts pulling away, the instinct to chase them can feel overwhelming. It's that sinking feeling in your stomach, the silence on your phone, the sudden change in tone from warm and open to cold and distant. You replay conversations in your head, scan old texts for clues, and wonder if one more message, one more phone call, or one heartfelt explanation will bring them back. But in these moments, the greatest act of strength isn't reaching out again. It's holding space. Holding space doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're cold or indifferent. It means you recognize that chasing someone who is unsure about you doesn't bring them closer. It just makes you smaller. It turns your connection into a pursuit, your confidence into anxiety, and your worth into a negotiation. Hi, Val, you individual understands that connection must be mutual. If it begins to feel one-sided, if the other person starts stepping back, the response isn't to fill the silence with desperate noise. It's to create room for clarity for both of you. That space can be uncomfortable, especially if you're emotionally invested, but it's necessary. Because in that stillness, the truth starts to surface. You begin to see whether their distance was a passing fear or a permanent drift. And just as importantly, they begin to see what your absence feels like. There's an unspoken power in restraint. When you stop reacting, when you stop pushing to fix what may not be yours to fix, you reclaim something essential, your dignity. You let the other person experience the consequences of their actions without interference. If they pull away and you immediately chase, they never feel the distance they created. But when you hold space, you give them room to reflect, to notice the shift, and to recognize what's missing without your constant presence. This isn't about games or silence as a weapon. It's about refusing to devalue you yourself in the pursuit of someone who might not even know what they want. If they're confused, let them be confused without your pressure. If they're scared, let them face it without your rescue. If they're retreating, don't follow them into uncertainty. Stay rooted in who you are, in what you bring to the table, in the love you know how to give. Because the truth is, if someone really values you, your space won't push them away. It will pull them into awareness, and if it doesn't, that silence gave you your answer. You don't need to chase someone who can't meet you halfway. You need to hold the line, protect your energy, and wait for the kind of connection that runs toward you with the same intention. Chasing can feel like control, like you're trying to steer the outcome, trying to protect yourself from pain. But pain doesn't disappear just because you delay it. What hurts more than someone leaving is watching yourself fall apart while trying to convince them to stay. That erosion of self is a deeper loss than any relationship. So when someone pulls away, when the message is slow, when the warmth fades, pause, breathe, do not fill the void with panic. Let the space speak. Let your silence hold your value. Let them feel what it's like not to have constant access to you. You don't need to beg for clarity when your actions already reflect your worth. You don't need to force affection from someone who's unsure. You just need to stand still long enough for the right energy to either return to you or make room for something better. The need to chase is rooted in fear, but when you hold space, you're rooted in truth, and truth never needs to be chased, it just needs to be trusted. Respect is one of those things that seems simple on the surface, yet it quietly determines the health and future of every relationship. It isn't just about being polite or kind. It's about recognizing the humanity, boundaries, and worth of the person in front of you, and expecting the same in return. When someone forgets this balance, when they treat your presence as disposable or your time as flexible only for their convenience, the foundation of connection begins to crack. In dating, it's easy to overlook small signs of disrespect, especially when you're emotionally invested or hopeful about where things could lead. You make excuses for unanswered texts, dismiss emotional coldness, or brush off inconsistency as they're just busy or they're going through something. But when respect becomes one-sided, the relationship stops being mutual. One person carries the weight while the other drifts in and out based on convenience. A high-value person knows that respect isn't just shown in grand gestures. It's in the small, everyday behaviors. It's in how someone listens when you speak. It's in how they respond when you express your needs. It's in whether they acknowledge your boundaries without making you feel guilty for having them. And just as importantly, it's in how they show up when things get hard, not just when they're easy or fun. When someone values you, their behavior naturally reflects that respect. They don't leave you wondering where you stand. They don't give you mixed signals and expect you to stay grounded. They don't disappear for days and then return as if nothing happened. Respect means accountability. It means consistency. It means treating your heart and time as something precious, not something to be tested or taken for granted. But respect is a two-way street. It requires both people to show up, not perfectly, but with integrity. If you find yourself constantly tolerating disrespect in the hope that love will follow, you've already lost balance. It's not your job to earn someone's respect through self-sacrifice or endless patience. Your job is to uphold the standard for how you allow others to treat you. This means sometimes stepping away, even when your heart wants to stay. It means choosing silence when someone repeatedly ignores your voice. It means letting go of people who only want you on their terms when it's easy, convenient, or beneficial to them. Respect can't be one-sided. When it is, what you're experiencing isn't love, it's compliance. It's emotional performance dressed up as loyalty. Mutual respect doesn't always look like constant agreement. It can involve difficult conversations, hurt feelings, and the need to pause and recalibrate. But even in those moments, it still shows up in how someone speaks to you, how they consider your perspective, and how they act once they realize they've hurt you. People make mistakes, but someone who truly respects you doesn't repeat the same ones without change. They don't say sorry with words and nothing more. They align their actions with their apologies, and you respect yourself enough to notice the difference. You don't need someone to validate your worth before you start acting like you have it. You set your standards and hold to them, not because you're trying to punish anyone, but because you know what a relationship looks like when it's rooted in equal effort, mutual care, and real consideration. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're giving respect but not receiving it, that's your moment of clarity. That's your signal to pause, to reflect, and to choose you again, not out of ego, but out of alignment. You weren't made to chase approval or to convince someone to see your value. You were made to connect with people who naturally do. Respect isn't earned through silence or tolerance. It's not a reward you unlock by shrinking yourself or playing it cool. It's either present from both sides or it's not real, and you deserve real. You deserve a space where your presence is appreciated, your voice is heard, and your boundaries are honored, not sometimes, not occasionally, but consistently. Because anything less than that isn't mutual, and love without mutual respect is just performance. When someone pulls away from you, your mind immediately wants to go with them. You start thinking about what they're doing, who they're with, what went wrong, and whether it was your fault. You replay conversations, reread texts, overanalyze pauses, and question everything. In that spiral, you start losing touch with the one person you actually need to be thinking about yourself. It's in these moments of emotional chaos that reclaiming your focus becomes not just a choice, but a necessity, because while your thoughts are consumed by someone else's distance, your energy is being drained from the parts of your life that need you the most. Your purpose, your growth, your peace, your self-respect, those things quietly wait in the background while your attention is consumed by anxiety and what-ifs. Reclaiming your focus doesn't mean pretending you don't care. It means choosing to care about what you can control. You can't force someone to stay, to choose you, or to explain why they've shifted. But you can decide what you do with your time, your thoughts, and your actions. You can decide that this moment won't define you, that this pullback won't derail you. You return to your work, not as a distraction, but as a declaration. You re-engage with your passions, not to forget, but to remember who you are without needing someone else to remind you. You commit to your physical, emotional, and mental well-being, not to prove something to them, but to show up for yourself in the way you've always deserved. When you focus on someone who isn't focusing on you, you lose twice. Once in their absence and again in your own. But when you reclaim your focus, you stop that cycle, you begin to rebuild, you start investing in areas of your life that give back. You start realizing that your world doesn't have to stop spinning just because someone chose to step out of it. The truth is, energy is currency. What you give your focus to is what you fund. So ask yourself, what are you funding when your entire mental world is centered around someone else's indecision? What dreams, goals, and opportunities are you putting on hold while you wait for a text that might never come? And who are you becoming in the process? When someone pulls away, it creates a vacuum, and if you're not intentional, that space fills up with self-doubt. You begin to question if you're enough, if you said too much, if you cared too deeply. But the deeper truth is that someone pulling away is rarely about you. It's about their readiness, their wounds, their timing. And no amount of mental gymnastics will give you a satisfying answer. The real answer is in what you do next. You take that energy and you redirect it. You pour it into your personal growth, your creative outlets, your body, your routines, your goals. You show yourself that even when someone else changes course, you don't lose your direction. You don't sit on the sidelines of your own life waiting to be picked again. Reclaiming your focus also means reclaiming your identity. Because sometimes in relationships, especially when we deeply care, we begin to mold ourselves around the other person. We lose pieces of our independence, our ambition, our clarity. Their validation becomes our compass. But when they step back and we're left staring at the space they used to fill, it's a wake-up call. That space can either become an emotional graveyard or a creative garden. It depends on what you choose to plant. This is your moment, not to chase, not to convince, not to prove, but to return to yourself, to the person you were before the confusion set in, to the version of you that has always had enough, even if someone else failed to see it. You don't have to be the victim of someone's withdrawal. You can be the author of your own recentering. You can be the proof that even after disappointment, distraction, or heartbreak, you rise stronger and clearer than before. Focus isn't just attention, it's power. Reclaim yours. There's a unique kind of power in silence, one that most people underestimate. When someone begins to pull away, when their energy shifts or their presence fades, the natural instinct is to fill the space. To call, to message, to ask questions, to seek clarity, to try and fix what feels like it's falling apart. It's a deeply human response. We want resolution, we want certainty, we want to feel like we matter enough for someone to respond. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, not out of passive aggression or stubbornness, but from a place of grounded self-respect. Sometimes silence says what words cannot. Silence is not the absence of communication, it's a form of it. It's not avoidance, it's presence without performance. It's the moment when you choose to stop forcing something and start observing instead. Because when someone changes their behavior, when they begin to create emotional or physical distance, they're already communicating something, even if they're not saying it directly. And in those moments, rather than scrambling to decode every word, you can choose to stop talking and let the truth emerge in the quiet. People reveal themselves not just by what they say, but by how they show up or don't. When you're silent, when you resist the urge to chase or explain or plead, you create space for authenticity. If the connection was mutual, if the intention was real, your silence becomes a mirror. It reflects back what was always there, uncluttered by effort, unclouded by need. Letting silence speak doesn't mean closing your heart. It means protecting your peace. It means stepping back so you can see the relationship without the fog of desperation. It's in the stillness that you notice what your energy has been covering up, the emotional imbalance, the inconsistency, the gaps you were trying to fill with your own effort. You start to realize that some people only stay when you keep reaching out. That your constant presence, your continued availability, has been the glue holding things together, and when you stop speaking, when you stop initiating, what happens next tells you everything. Do they notice your absence? Do they check in? Do they reach back? Or does your silence expose their lack of investment? It's hard, letting the silence speak. It's uncomfortable. You wrestle with thoughts like, what if they think I don't care? Or what if I'm pushing them away more? But if someone's connection to you is so fragile that your moment of pause breaks it, then that bond was never strong enough to hold real commitment anyway. Silence also gives you back your clarity. It's in that space, when the noise stops, that you start to hear your own voice again. You remember what you want, what you deserve, and how often you've been compromising those things just to keep someone around. You begin to ask deeper questions, not about them, but about you. Why does their distance trigger me this much? What part of me believes I have to earn love through overgiving? What fear is driving me to fill this silence? And then, slowly, that silence becomes healing, not because it gave you answers about them, but because it brought you home to yourself. It teaches you patience. It strengthens your emotional resilience. It helps you distinguish between reacting from fear and responding from self-trust. If you find yourself in a moment where someone's distance is louder than their words, pause. Don't rush to fill the silence. Don't panic to fix the shift. Let it speak, because in that quiet space, you don't just learn about them. You rediscover you find your strength, you reclaim your boundaries. You hear your own voice again, clearer, calmer, and no longer fighting to be heard. Let the silence speak not as a punishment, but as a mirror, and trust that the right people, those meant to stay, will always hear what your silence is saying. Thank you.